Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday. It is the 24th day of Sivan. We continue chapter 7 in Shaar, Yichud, vEmuna. And we have a very interesting topic that is discussed today. And that is called the topic of TZIMTZUM, the doctrine of TZIMTZUM. TZIMTZUM literally means contraction. And we are talking about the contraction that Hashem contracted his energy, his light, so to speak, in order for us to exist. And that is something, of course, we discussed in length in many different lessons in Tanya, that in order for us to be able to receive Hashem's energy, to be able to exist, Hashem needs to contract his energy. Otherwise, like the example we give of energy that comes from the power plant, if you're going to plug your cell phone straight into the power plant, it's going to go kaboom. It's not, you need to contract. You need to have a transformer to contract the energy. So here there is this was the concept of TZIMTZUM was a concept that was known for long. The Kabbalists for many years talked about it. But the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, about 500 years ago, he introduced a new understanding in the TZIMTZUM. And he explained that not only was Hashem contracted his light from step to step, but it needed to have, the way he describes it, he says in the beginning, the world was filled with the Eir Ein Sof, the endless light of Hashem. It filled the void, the chalal, and it filled the whole place. And in order for Hashem to allow space for the world to exist, he removed his light and left a void. Now, we have to understand when we're talking about those things, we shouldn't picture in our mind physical space and physical removing. It's all spiritual concept of the space to be there, meaning that there is no space for something which is outside of Hashem. So that's what the Arizal said. Rabbi Yitzchak Luria said that there was the original TZIMTZUM, original contraction was a contraction in form of removal of his light. And then after the removal of his light, and that remained a void, says the Arizal, Hashem drew down a reduced line of light, a completely reduced line of light. And from that, it brought about, after further contractions, it brought about the creation of the spiritual world, ultimately until it led to the creation of this physical world. So this novelty of the Arizal was understood by certain Kabbalists in different ways. And there was actually a debate among the Kabbalists. Some interpreted this concept of TZIMTZUM kipshuto, literally. That when we're talking about Hashem removing his light, it means that he removed that the essence of Hashem is not in the place where he created after, that he removed the place. Now, those Kabbalists who argued this way, obviously they believed that Hashem controls every little detail. And Hashem is everywhere, but in a sense, the way they describe it is just like a king in a palace. A king deals, obviously the king controls the whole entire country, but certain things it does not fit for the king to be. It doesn't fit for the king to be in the garbage dump. The garbage dump needs to be taken care of, and the king does that, but he does it from his palace. And let others who take care of those places. So the king is not literally in the place. He's there. The presence of the king is there, but not in the literal sense. So those Kabbalists understood that what the Arizal is saying is in a similar way, that God himself sort of removed his light, and Hashem is like controlling it from afar, so to speak. And this was actually an opinion that was also, the Alter Rebbe disagreed with that. And the other Kabbalists said no, that it's impossible to say, it doesn't make sense at all to say that Hashem literally removed his light, because Hashem is literally everywhere. Even in those places that you think that it doesn't fit for Hashem to be, Hashem is there. But so what does it mean, the tzimtzum? That's what the Alter Rebbe is going to explain. The tzimtzum, the contraction, the removal is from the perspective of the recipient. From our perspective, Hashem removed. That's a deep concept. We're just talking and in general the concept to understand. This, by the way, this was one of the causes of the friction that was in the time of the Vilna Gaon and the Alter Rebbe. The Vilna Gaon, his opinion was that the tzimtzum means literally, that Hashem removed literally. That's how we understood the teaching of the Arizal. And the Alter Rebbe vehemently disagreed and said that this is not so, that Hashem really is everywhere. And that ultimately, eventually, even the Vilna Gaon's disciple, Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner, he also, when he wrote the Nefesh HaChaim, which is a book which is in a way talks about many things that it says in the Tanya. So he also wrote about the tzimtzum like the Alter Rebbe's view, not like the Vilna Gaon's view. But in any case, this is what the Alter Rebbe here addresses here, that it's a big mistake to think that the tzimtzum, the removal of Hashem's light, what the Arizal talks about, that it means literal. And again, it's not that we cannot think about those concepts in a literal sense, that even though those great sages, the Gaon and many other sages, Kabbalists, who did understand that this way, doesn't mean that they understood it literally, but it means that Hashem is there in a way that is from afar. I mean, you can think about a concept, for example, when you're talking about an idea, something which an intellectual concept. So you can say the intellectual concept, let's say 2 + 2 = 4. You're going to say where this concept exists. Does it exist in Brooklyn? Or does it exist in California? Obviously, this is beyond space. It exists everywhere. But you can say that this concept needs a place to be. For example, you can say the concept of 2 + 2 = 4. You can say this exists in your logic. Your brain is a place for this. Does it exist in your hand or in a piece of wood? It's not a place where that concept is revealed. So the idea, the way they understand, is that the concept that Hashem is here is more in a removed way, not in a way that is revealed in every part. Okay? And the Alter Rebbe says that this is the thought that Hashem literally removed completely his light, and in certain places is not there. That's absolute nonsense. Let's look inside. We're only beginning today this concept. We're going to continue tomorrow. We're going to see inside the way the Alter Rebbe says it. Says the Alter Rebbe, "V'hine mikan." Now, in light of what has been said above, that God's knowledge is wholly one with God himself. For otherwise, it would imply multiplicity in one who is perfect unity. Okay, so this is something else we need to explain again. When we're saying that Hashem is one, and that means that Hashem is a perfect unity. Hashem is not made out of composite of different things. There's one. Everything Hashem is one. Is not the whole entire world is one with Hashem in a unity that we explained yesterday that is beyond the unity of what we know. And yes, Hashem knows everything. And Hashem created everything. But Hashem knowing everything and creating everything did not add anything to Hashem's presence, to Hashem's essence. And we explained why. Because Hashem knows everything by being everything. It's not something that is adding to Hashem's oneness. So based on this understanding, we can understand that the mistake of those people when they say that removal means literally removing himself, that is a big mistake. And he will explain why. So let's continue inside. Says the Alter Rebbe. So from this understanding, it is possible to understand the error of certain scholars in their own eyes. Hashem yichapa ba'adam. May God forgive them, because even those who have erred unwittingly are in need of atonement. So it says, Sheshogagu. They erred and misinterpreted in their study of the writings of the Arizal. vEmuna inyan TZIMTZUM amuzkar sham kipshutai. And they understood the doctrine of TZIMTZUM, which is mentioned therein literally. And it says they understood that the removal of the Ein Sof light means literally the removal of the Ein Sof light. So Shakadosh Baruch Hu sileik atzmai umahusai chas v'shalom me'olam hazeh. Now the Holy One, blessed be He, removed himself and his essence, God forbid, from this world. Meaning that he literally removed his presence rather than merely concealing it. And the way they understand is rak shemashgiach milemaylo be'ashgacha pratis al kol hayitzurim kulam asher b'shamayim imal v'lo mitochas. And they understand that he only guides from above with individual providence all the created beings which are in the heavens above and on earth below. So they thus envisage God as a king who sits in his palace, as we mentioned earlier. Although his gaze extends beyond its confines of the palace, the king himself is not to be found there. In the same way, so they would say, that God gazes from above on all the created beings, which are found heaven of earth and outside his palace. And that's the Alter Rebbe vehemently disagrees with. Says the Alter Rebbe, והנה מלבד שאי אפשר כלל לומר עניין הצמצום כפשוטו שהוא ממקרי הגוף על הקדוש ברוך הוא. He says, now apart from the fact that it is altogether impossible to apply the doctrine of tzimtzum literally. It says, when talking about Hashem, you cannot talk about a tzimtzum, a removal, a contraction, literally. Why? For that would be an instant of corporal phenomena. You have this is the idea of tzimtzum, is a corporal phenomena. And you're going to ascribe this to the Holy One, blessed be He, and nivdal me'em ribuy ribuvos avdalos ad ein kate. So he's set apart from them by infinite myriads of separations. There's one who is subject to the characteristics of a physical body can be said to undergo crucial actual tzimtzum and to depart. Previously he was here, and now he's not. It goes without saying that this cannot be ascribed to God, who is infinitely removed from the phenomena of corporality, apart from, so this is number one. Number one, you cannot ascribe a concept of tzimtzum to Hashem, which is beyond anything like that. But besides this, is the Alter Rebbe, Av gam zois loi bedas yidabeiru. In addition to this, it is in this thing itself, they also do not speak wisely. Why not? So we're going to say it outside, and then we're going to read it again. So the Alter Rebbe is going to say that, number one, he says that, the idea of tzimtzum you cannot ascribe to Hashem, which is beyond the concept of removal of things. In addition to that, he says, when we are saying that Hashem knows everything, and we know, and they know too, and they believe, says the Alter Rebbe, that Hashem knows every little creature. If Hashem knows every little creature, what are you going to say? That Hashem knows it. So if knowing something, before it was there, you didn't know it, and now you know it, so that means that something was added to Hashem. And that you cannot say about Hashem, about God, that he changed, that something is added to him, something he didn't have before, and now he has. So the way we explained it in the previous lessons is that by Hashem knowing something is being something. So therefore, nothing is added to his existence by having other things created. He creates everything by being there. So therefore, we must say that the presence of Hashem is in everything, even in the most literal thing, the most lowest things. This was something that the other scholars couldn't accept. How could you say that Hashem is in those low places? But obviously, yes. Hashem knows everything by being that. Otherwise, you're going to ascribe to Hashem something that is added to him. He's watching something which is added to him. So that's what Alter Rebbe says here. You cannot say so. Hashem is the simple unity, meaning a unity that is not a composite of many details. And therefore, We're not explaining today what the Alter Rebbe's view is, that tzimtzum lo kipshuto, not that the tzimtzum means not literal. But let's see inside what the Alter Rebbe says. Again, Avgam zois loy bedasi da beiru. So they, in this thing itself, they do not speak wisely. Why? Me'achashem ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim sha'kadosh baruch hu yodea kol ha'yitzurim she'ba'olam hazeh hashafel u'mashgiach aleim. Because since they are believers, sons of believers, that the Holy One, blessed be He, knows all the created beings in this world and exercises His providence over them. So they themselves admit that God's knowledge and providence extends to the physical world, to this physical world. Ve'al kochach. Ein yadiyosai oisam meisifa by riba v'chidush. And we must say, said Alter Rebbe, that his knowledge of them does not add plurality and innovations to him. Why? Because as we explained yesterday, because he knows all by knowing himself. So were God's knowledge of created beings not to come from knowing himself, then it would be correct to say that this knowledge adds plurality and innovations to him. Previously, he did not know them, and now he does. However, since plurality and innovation cannot possibly apply to God, because like we said before, God is the oneness, the one and only, and not a oneness of composite unity. So he must, but he must therefore know them, and through his knowledge of himself. Therefore, as it were, his essence and being and his knowledge of created beings are all one. So since God's knowledge and providence extend to this world, and since his knowledge is one with him, it follows that God himself is to be found within this physical world. Unlike the king who sits in his palace and gazes beyond its walls, the king himself is to be found wherever his providence and knowledge are found. True enough, it is only through divine providence, through the divine service, that this world may be transformed into a place in which God is revealed. Nonetheless, God is present in this lowly corporal world, which feels itself to exist independently of him to the same degree as he is present within the higher spiritual worlds. So again, like we said, this is a deep concept, the concept of tzimtzum. So the point here that the Rebbe is making, that tzimtzum is not kipshuto. To say that tzimtzum kipshuto, that tzimtzum is literal, number one doesn't make sense. You cannot ascribe to Hashem, and it's like ascribing to Hashem that is a composite of different things. That you're having something else, the whole world, the details of the world is adding something to Hashem. So we'll continue Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow to explain the way the Alter Rebbe's view, and the way other sages, other Mekubalim that understood the Arizal, what the Arizal is saying, that tzimtzum lo kipshuto, that the contraction is not literal world. The removal does not literally mean that Hashem removed himself, but it's only from our perspective. How is this supposed to teach us in service of Hashem? What is the message? What is the moral we can take the takeaway from this is the greatness, the great love that Hashem has to us. Just like Hashem, just like a person who has much love to someone else and he contracts himself, he takes away from his own being, from his own existence to give to someone else, gives place for the other person. How much more does Hashem do for us? That Hashem removes his light, so to speak, and he allows us to exist, and he gives us the privilege, the pleasure to be able to unite with Hashem. That is a great kindness that Hashem has to us, and therefore we got to use it out and find the ways to connect to Hashem, which is through Torah, through mitzvahs. So thank you so much for joining, and we shall continue tomorrow. Any questions we can take now?